6 days to read 200 pages, which if that doesn't prove that I've been ill, I don't know what else will. And I do plan on annotating the ever-living hell out of this because... Hello my loves, and thank you for joining me. It's Kirsten and we are doing November's reading wrap up, and I have been ill, hence why I sound the way I sound. Hopefully it's okay, but yeah, I've been ill and I need to get this video filmed and edited so that it's up in time for you. So we're just gonna power through. So let's just get straight to this. So November reading wrap up, the way I do it is smash or pass. So I talk about all the books that I read in the month of November and whether I would smash or pass. Really simple. Let's just dive straight into it, starting off with DNF. So this is an automatic pass, and that is The Woman in White by Wilkie Collins. I haven't got far into it. I am 44 pages into this book, and yeah, it's one that I tried to read because I've been told quite a few times that I will really like this because I like Jane Eyre and Rebecca, and it is a book that I have been wanting to try. I was very excited by the first page, like the writing was lovely. I like the concept of this, that we're getting the account of what happened to this woman in white from the different people that are involved. However, the actual writing style I am not loving. This is very descriptive, which obviously I don't mind. I've read lots of different classic books. They tend to be quite descriptive. The way the descriptions are in this book, I just can't seem to gel with. I am tempted to try and pick this one back up at a later point. It is one of those books where I do really want to read it. It's all about this woman in white who has escaped from an asylum, or at least that's what we've been told so far. We're following this main character who is an art tutor, and one day he was walking to London late at night, saw this woman in white along this country path and was like, hey, can I help you? You're on your own at night, it's not really that safe. She's like, no, I just need to like get away from things. So like, if you're happy to not know anything about me and just help me find a carriage, then sure. So he does. And then once she goes off, a few minutes later, these two other men come along who are saying to this police officer, have you seen a woman in white? And the police was like, no. And like, why? What's going on? And that's when we learn that she's escaped from an asylum. I haven't learned much about this book. It's just, I just don't like the descriptions that are being used, and I found myself not enjoying it while I was reading it. I have to really like a writing style, especially because I'm a character driven reader and there's not loads of dialogue yet in this book. For me to then like descriptions and stuff, it has to be well written and in a way that I can really connect to, and this I am not enjoying. This was a DNF and a pass. We then have a book that I'm in the middle of. I really wanted to have read by today. It's not happened because I've been ill. The week that this is coming up, the Sunday of that, I have been ill across the week leading up to that, and this week was the week that I'd put aside to read The Labyrinth Heart by M.A. Carrick, and I have not gone very far. I've got to chapter 10, page 211. It's taken me the last 6 days to read 200 pages, which if that doesn't prove that I've been ill, I don't know what else will, because I can normally read 200 pages in a day. So the fact that it's taken me 6 days to read that much, what can I say? I'm ill. I am liking this one. This is the third book in a trilogy. It's the Rick and Rose trilogy. Obviously I haven't finished it yet, but so far I'm liking it, although I do have a couple of things that I'm not gelling with, which I do mention in my weekly reading vlog, which will come up after this video. Some things are just not connecting together. Like, I feel like we're missing scenes between scenarios. I'm not going to get too deep into it because you're going to be seeing this in weekly vlogs and obviously in December when I finish it in the December wrap up. So far though, it's still a smash. I'm still enjoying it. It's just there are a few things that are making it so it's not perfect. But this is a fantasy trilogy that is set in a kind of Venetian inspired town, city, and we're following a main character called Wren, who is a con artist. There are lots of other different main characters involved. There's lots of different plot lines spinning. There's magic involved and a tarot card like magic, which I have been adoring. There's just lots going on and I do really enjoy it, but I feel like this third book so far has been my least favourite, but I'm still enjoying it enough that I definitely want to finish it. I've just been too ill to be able to focus on it because there are so many characters and so many plot lines in this book. You really need to be able to pay attention to what's going on, and I am too ill to do that right now. Hopefully this will get finished maybe next week, but yeah, definitely wasn't in time for this video, unfortunately. Moving on to the ebook that I read this month, Midnight is the Darkest Hour by Ashley Winstead. I was meant to have read, well, I had hoped, I should say, to have read a few other ebooks by now. That hasn't happened. Life, I feel, in general in November has just been really busy. There's been lots of different things going on, so I haven't read as much as I normally would have at this point. I would have read more ebook, I feel like. I don't know, I could be talking out my ass. I am quite tired. Head's like a bit muddled at the minute, so like, who knows, actually, I could just be lying. But anyway, this was an ebook that I read and I really, really liked. Kind of like a darker thriller book, but one that, I loved it. It was really good. It kind of solidified that I want to read everything that Ashley Winstead has written. This is my second book by her that I've read. So Midnight is the Darkest Hour, we are following Ruth. And Ruth has been brought up in a small town in Louisiana that is very Christianity focused. Her father is the parish priest. I'm not sure if I'm using the right terminology for that. He is the priest, and she's been brought up in a very strict and regimented style. She gets punished for the smallest of things. I think the term that's used in the book is evangelical Christians, where everything is to do with... Oh wait, have I read 2 ebooks? I can't even remember. I feel like maybe. Anyway, let's focus on this and then I'll get back to it. But yeah, so they're very evangelical Christians and they very much believe a woman is to be seen and not heard. There's a lot that goes on in this town. But Ruth is wanting to break out against that, although she also doesn't want to, because she does have a lot of respect and fear for her father, and she just doesn't know. Her way of rebelling is reading Twilight, because the church has such a hold on the town that even the library is vetted by what is allowed in the library. They're allowed no books that are fantastical, that court with anything there that like women can have like more of a choice and things like this. And Twilight is a book that she found that somehow managed to get through the cracks, and she became obsessed over this book, and it really just showed her a different life, a different way of seeing things. She really connected to Bella. Honestly, the way that it's written like made me want to reread Twilight. It was really good. I really liked it. And we also have this second main character who Ruth becomes friends with, but it's a boy that is very much shunned. They don't even come to church. Like, he's seen as a very much bad egg. Now, we do have 2 timelines in this book. One is of the present day, where we have this murder that's happened, or what they think is a murder. They've had a body turn up in the swamp. I loved the setting of this book. We have a swamp and everything. So a body's turned up in this swamp and they're doing an investigation to find out what happens, and it turns out it was foul play. And then we get flashbacks to when Ruth is younger. The flashbacks aren't in order, like in timeline order. Instead, they're flashbacks that connect to something that's happened during the present day. I really loved this book. I thought it was really interesting, really gripping. I loved the atmosphere, I loved the setting, and I loved the ending. I have seen a couple of vlogs, I think Gabby did one, where she really hated the ending of that book. I loved how it was open-ended and you could make up your own mind as to what was happening. I loved it. I just thought it was absolutely fantastic. I really enjoyed this book. It is darker, it does deal on some harder topics to read, especially like with the things that are going on in the church and the things that they have allowed to happen to keep the power that they have. Like, there's a lot, so do check your trigger warnings, but I really enjoyed this one, and like I said, I do want to read more Ashley Winstead. I did actually start her other book, like a backlist one, which was In My Dreams I Hold a Knife, but I haven't read far into it, so I didn't bother with what I'm in the middle of, because I barely read into it. But that is an ebook I'd really like to continue on with soon. I feel like I've read another ebook. Let me check my phone. Oh, I did, but I have the physical book here to show you, so we'll get to that one. Oh, and I did have one other DNF, but DNFs that are under 20 pages I don't really add on to here. It just seems a bit pointless. But the other ebook that I tried was the number 2 Feline Detective Agency. Didn't really get on with this. I think I managed like 15 pages and I just could not get on with the writing style. This is a detective agency that's ran by cats, and I didn't mind the way it was done, like the way that the cats could like have mobile phones and things like this. Like, none of that bothered me. It was just the actual writing itself I did not enjoy, which was a shame because I was really excited for it. That's everything ebook wise and what I'm in the middle of. And let's get to all of the actual physical books that I never read, except one of these I read as a Kindle book. Anyway, we're going to get to it. First up though, I have The Body in the Library by Agatha Christie. This is a Miss Marple book. It was also the Discord book club pick for the month. So if you don't know, I do have a Discord channel. You can join if you want to. It's free to join, and we have a book club every month. And The Body in the Library is the one that won for the month of November. And I really enjoyed this. This was my reread and I had a lot of fun with it. The first time I read this book, I got the mystery completely wrong. Like, the person that was behind it, completely wrong. The second time I read it, I remembered some parts and other parts I didn't, so I still got it partly wrong. I don't know, I had a really good time with this though. And this is a murder mystery, so we have a body that has turned up in the library and we've got to try and figure out why. What's happened? Who is this person? Why have they ended up dead in this library? What is going on? And Miss Marple gets called in to help. I actually really like this book because Miss Marple has a bit more of an active role in this book. Some of the other later books I've read in the Miss Marple series, you only really see her at the very end and she might be there for like a couple of pages, whereas in this book she was a lot more active, so I really liked that. Smash, by the way. I didn't even say that for Midnight is the Darkest Hour. That was a smash. Loved that book. I think it's actually probably been my favourite book of the month that I've read. That was really good. So smash for Midnight is the Darkest Hour and smash for The Body in the Library. Then we have a book I can't decide where I'm placing, Christy Affair by Nina D. Gramont. Now this was an interesting one. This is advertised as a Agatha Christie has gone missing for those 11 days, but she actually went missing in history. What happened during that time? And so I was expecting to go into this having a lot more to do with Agatha Christie. And we were seeing it from Nancy's perspective. Now Nancy is Agatha Christie's husband's mistress. That's all based on real events. Agatha Christie's husband did have a mistress. Agatha Christie did go missing for a while. They then had a divorce and he married the mistress. All of that happens, but this book really didn't focus on Agatha Christie. Instead it focused on Nancy, which is absolutely fine, but I feel like the parts that is focusing on Nancy, there is nothing to indicate that in the synopsis of this. And I feel like that has led to a lot of people expecting one thing and getting something else. What is actually this book is about is Nancy's past, and Nancy's past is someone that after the wars happened, she ends up getting pregnant by her sweetheart, don't end up getting married straight away, and this is at a time where to be pregnant and unmarried it's just the wrong thing. You cannot have that happen. Like, it is seen as such a slander, and you see different women that are in that situation and the different ways that it ends. It is a really difficult book in those moments to read, and it's very much a historical fiction looking at women and how they were treated and how some were put into like these convents. Like Nancy had spent a lot of time in Ireland and she was in a convent in Ireland for women like her, and the way that they were treated and just the horrendous things that happen as a result. It's a very poignant, emotional read, but I feel like this book is very messy as well. That would have been amazing if it was on its own. We were also trying to tie in Agatha Christie's disappearance. There's also a bit of a mystery element to this book that's going on. There were too many things trying to go on, and I feel like you had half a book that was this historical, very poignant tale, and then another half the book where you have a splash of Agatha Christie and a bit of a mystery that's going on. None of it seemed to really mesh together very well. It was very messy and very all over the place, and as much as I can appreciate the historical fiction side of things of the way women were treated during this time period that were pregnant outside of wedlock, it just didn't work with how this book is marketed. Like, there is none of that on the back. Only thing that is on a little bit that says we have any sort of a past, oh, it's Nan, not Nancy, my bad, is that Nan's world is something very different. Her attempts to escape a tough London upbringing during the Great War led Nan to a life in Ireland marred by hidden tragedy. There's not much about the disappearance, and that's what the synopsis mainly is about. This is what happened during her disappearance, and it's like, but the book isn't about her disappearance. The book is about Nan's past, and so I feel like Agatha Christie was just there rather than it actually being a point to the plot. It makes it difficult for me to try and say whether I'd smash or pass this, because on the one hand I think the way that the historical elements of this book were handled was really, really good, and so that's a smash. However, for the purpose of this being about Agatha Christie going missing and what the book is meant to be about, it's a pass because it's not actually about that. So it's a really difficult one to be able to judge. Honestly, it's probably a pass because it just doesn't do what it says it's going to do, and even I wanted to go into it for the Agatha Christie part and it's just not really there. I think it's more used as a convenience to tell this story when honestly you could have stripped away all of the Agatha Christie bits and still had a really decent story, one that was very emotional, and honestly one that was probably better. It's taken me ages to film this. It says I've been filming for like 19 minutes already and I haven't even done that many books. Right, okay, a few more, let's go. A pass is The Mysterious Case of the Appleton Angels by Janice Hallett. Did not get on with this book. I really didn't enjoy it. I think the concept great. This book is about a journalist. We're following Amanda, and she's writing a book about the case of the angels, and this case is a cult where they convinced a girl to sacrifice her baby, believing it was the Antichrist, but they managed to get stopped just in time. It was interesting. I really wanted to read it because I was intrigued by the fact that we were looking over all of the old case files and to see what had gone on with this cult, except that's not really what happens. Instead, we're following Amanda, who is starting to investigate what actually happened, stumbles across a lot of things that show that this case was so badly handled, really trying to unpick as to why. Like, it's really messy, trying to unpick everything, and again, that would be absolutely fine with me, except every single thing in this book is done as emails, WhatsApp messages, transcript. Not one single point was it just a normal novel that I could read. And as a result, I could not have a single connection to any of the characters in this book. The only person that I felt a little bit for was the transcriber, because she put little comments in what she was transcribing. As a character-driven person, I couldn't get on board with this book. Then things started happening, and there's a few turns that this book takes, but to me it was all really predictable. I saw where it was going. I saw the things that Amanda was doing. So she does have a person that she's meant to be working on for this, Oliver. Except there's clearly some bad past between Oliver and Amanda. Do you know fully what it is? No, not really. You kind of find out eventually what happened. Because you're not at any point inside these people's heads, you don't actually know the thoughts, emotions and anything like that that goes along with it. So it makes it a really, again, difficult for me to connect to. So they've obviously got this bad past, and then Amanda starts doing things that immediately makes you go, what the heck are you doing? Why are you doing this? And then the ending has bad consequences as a result. I'm sorry, but I went into this wanting a book that's going to investigate this cult, which was really interesting to me, and it doesn't turn out that way. It's about something completely different, which I won't give away in case you do want to read it, because it is an interesting way of writing this book. So many people seem to love it. I am definitely in the minority here, but I really didn't enjoy it. And then the way it all ended, I was like, well, we knew that was happening. Amanda's a horrible person. This was bound to happen. And then the actual resolution from the case was just so quick, and I'm like, why? And some of the stuff that was in here wasn't even needed. At the time that this case happened, we had a film and a TV series and stuff that took inspiration from this case that they then made, except it was clearly fictionalized. It was all over the place, but you had it in here, and I'm like, why am I reading this script? Like, why is that in here? I don't need this. It's clearly not anything factualized. Like, why is it in here? And then one thing that was based on the real events was so clearly based on the real event that in the end that was the only one I read, and when the other two came up I just straight skipped past them because I thought, you're not adding anything to this story. But like I say, I am in the minority with this book. I would take what I'm saying with a pinch of salt. This came recommended to me from someone whose recommendations I really trust. I think for me it was just the formatting of this book. I couldn't get on with it because I could not connect to characters, and I am too much of a character driven reader. Have that taken away from me, and then because the plot line I didn't like, I wanted something else from this book. So I think it's me more mismanaging my expectations and then not getting on with the way it was written. This is a pass. Didn't enjoy it, but I would still recommend to others. Basically, have a look on Goodreads, check up other reviews of this book. I think it just didn't work for me, but it has been really well received by others. Another book that, oh my gosh, I'm just realising how disappointing a reading this was. We have A Curse for True Love by Stephanie Klabar, and this is the third and final book in the Once Upon a Broken Heart series. I say third and final, I think we're wrapping up the trilogy, although I think it's been left open that we could have potential other books in this series, and I was very excited for this book. It is a cute, cozy, whimsical fantasy. Again, this book, it left me wanting so much more and kind of feeling like, was this even needed? The way the second book ended, I was in like, oh my god, I can't believe that's happened. I desperately need to know what's going to happen next. And then I got this book and I was so excited, and then I was like, and I'm waiting. And I'm waiting and I'm waiting, and nothing come of it. Nothing's happened the way I thought it was going to. We have certain characters that don't ever make an appearance again in this, but what happened to them? Some things that were really, really drawn out that I feel like, but why? Like, kind of feel like this was more of a filler book, which is weird because it's meant to be tying off a story, and it does in a way. Did I still like it? Yes, because I love the characters. I can get past a lot of things if I like the characters because, as I said, I'm a character-driven reader. And I love the characters. I love this world. I think it is a really cute, cozy, warming time. This is also the worst book in the series, in my opinion. I feel like a lot of it was unnecessary. So, like, there is a certain thing that happens at the end of the second book. These people are involved, this family is involved, and you think, oh my god, it's going to be like this whole thing, what's going to happen here? I feel like that was pointless. They were barely even in it, and I feel like that's where the next book series are going to go. But then the main story of Evangeline and Jax, the two people that we've been following, so Evangeline is a lovely girl who is really cute and whimsical and believes in the best of people. She gets involved with Jax in the first book, who is a fate, who is someone that you really don't want to get involved with, and it's meant to be like their story, but that doesn't even really happen. The longer I've sat with this book, the more disappointed by it I am. At the same time, I do like it because, you know, I like this world. But if we think about the fact that if I was to do star ratings, the first two books, 5 stars, absolutely loved them. Were there problems with them? Are they the best written things? Well, no, they're not the best written, and yes, there were problems, but there was so much fun and stuff that I overlooked it. In this book, I couldn't overlook it. The story I wanted, I never got. So I feel like if I was rating this book, it'd probably be like a 3, maybe a 3.5, which is so disappointing for the ending of a series, especially with the way the second book ended. But like I say, I mean, I still enjoyed reading it because I still really enjoyed the characters. It's just my excitement levels were up here, and then what I got was like down here. And I know I haven't even explained properly what this is. It's a cutesy fantasy, as I've already said, following Evangeline, and in the first book, the person that she loves ends up marrying her stepsister, and so she goes to Jax and's like, no, please, you've got to stop this wedding. So Jax does. He does exactly what she asked, just not quite in the way that she wanted it to happen. And so then she goes and like has to save everyone, and then it sets off this series of events where she ends up going to this magical north place, and it is very whimsical and very fun, cotton candy sweet of a book, with lots of magic, and the magic doesn't really make sense, but it's cutesy. And I don't mind that because that's what I go into these books for. Like, I am admittedly a darker reader. I prefer dark reads. However, every so often I want that cozy, cutesy feel, want that bit of sugar in my life, and that's what these books are. Unfortunately, this book, although it gave me that in the setting, plotline, I think let me down quite a lot because I was expecting one thing and I got something else, and while we did get a resolution towards the end, I had to get through all of these pages to get there, and then as a result the ending was really rushed for me. I feel like if we had spent maybe 100 pages less of what we got at the beginning and expanded what we got at the end, I would have really enjoyed this book. So part of me wants to give this a pass, because it just wasn't what I wanted it to be. But I did enjoy it. And would I reread it? I think that's the question. Would I reread this? I don't think I would, you know. I would reread more books in this world, and I would reread... That's not what I was trying to say. I would read other books in this world if she brings out more. And I would reread the first two. Don't think I would reread this one. So I'm going to give it a pass, but I'm still keeping it because I did enjoy it and I want it for the collection. It really was my least favourite out of the series, which is a shame. You'll have to let me know if you've read this and if you've liked it. I know Abby read it and she has very similar thoughts to me on this. We've got 4 more books. My throat is killing me. We can do this. A reread that I absolutely loved, that is a smash, is House of Earth and Blood by Sarah J. Maas, the first book in the Crescent City series. I am rereading these books in anticipation for the third book coming out at the end of January, which you can bet your ass I am booking those 2 days off work so I can read it. Comes out on January the 30th and I am booking January the 30th and 31st off work so I can read it. I'm so excited for this book. But yeah, so this is the reread. This is Sarah J. Maas' adult fantasy book series. I've been talking about it quite a lot lately, so apologies for that, but we're following a main character called Bryce, and she gets caught up in this murder investigation with fallen angel hunt. We are in a urban fantasy setting, so we've got lots of different magical creatures, shifters, merfolk, angels, sprites, chimeras, fae. There's loads going on. Bryce herself is half human, half fae. There is a lot going on in this book. I loved it. Now, don't get me wrong, upon my third time of reading this, I can notice things that are drawn out, things that should have been edited out. Honestly, the amount of repetition that's in this book, we could get rid of that. We don't need the same phrase repeated 3 times every single time. Can we just ignore all of that because I love it anyway? That is what I do. So I love this book. It is an immediate smash. I think Sarah J. Maas for me is always going to be one of those people where I'm going to pick up whatever she does because I just love her books, and part of that is nostalgia and rose-tinted glasses from the fact that I grew up with them. Part of them, I think she just does something to her characters. There is something about her characters that I cannot get enough of. I love them. Even characters I don't actually like, I still want to read about. Like, I just love it. I do think the plot lines and things like this are very drawn out. I think there's a lot of like writing style stuff that could have been tightened up a bit. But honestly, at this point, Sarah J. Maas has such a massive following that I don't feel like they bother editing much of her works anymore. But I still love it. I still really enjoy it. I can't get away from it. I do. I enjoy it. I think it's really fun, and I mean the emotional bits, like I cry at the ending of this book every single time. There are 2 points in this book that make me cry, and it made me cry even upon the third time of rereading this. That is why for me she will always be a smash, because the way she does her characters I cannot help but be invested in. Would I recommend this as a place to start with Sarah J Maas if you've never read Sarah J Maas? Yes, if you prefer adult fantasy, romantasy, like if you like fantasy romance, give Sarah J Maas a try. I think that's the best way to do that. I love it. I think it's really good. I really love the setting. Do I think there's unnecessary swearing, especially in the first half of this book? Oh god, yes. And yet I still love it. A book I read today while I was off at a physio appointment is The Printer's Devil Court by Susan Hill. And this is a very short book. It's only 100 pages. It also has illustrations in it, so it's a really quick read considering that 100 pages you also have pages like this with no text. This was really interesting. It's kind of like almost a ghost story version of Frankenstein, which I really enjoyed actually. It was not bad at all. And a book I haven't seen anyone talking about. I literally found it in a charity shop for 50 pence. Knew that Susan Hill wrote The Woman in Black, which is a play I went to see and really enjoyed. Haven't read the book of that though. And I thought, you know what, why not give it a try? It's 50 pence. This was really good. I liked the eerie atmosphere of it. We're following our main character who is a medical student. He's living with 3 other medical students, and 2 of them get this idea into their head that they are going to reanimate the dead, and he kind of gets caught up in all of this. I like the obsession with what they're trying to do. It's not as like, we're not seeing the experiment side of things, because our main character's more seeing the results of what, and the result of all these other 2 characters' experimentation, but it does play on that whole, are we right to mess around with death and life, and should we really play gods like that, but make it a ghost story? I think it was really good. I think this is a really good quick read on like Halloween or something, would be perfect for that. I just think the setting's really good. Again, it's not a book I've heard much talk about, and I can't say it's a new favourite, but I really enjoyed this, and I think that's because I enjoy things like Frankenstein anyway. I think this was just an interesting take on that story, but more about the soul, what happens to our soul in death and the question that it poses, and I don't know, I really liked it. Thought it was really good. Okay, the last 2 books. I'm going to save the best for last, because actually this is a contender for my favourite book of the month as well. We then have A Study in Drowning by Ava Reid, and this okay, so I was saying during my weekly reading vlogs that this is like a darker version of Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies, and I feel like that was very much wishful thinking on my part. And I did say that in the later weekly vlog where I actually finished this book, where I'm like, it doesn't actually quite do that. This is marketed, and again, I think it's a case of mismarketing. This is marketed as a dark academia book involving fae. And while yes, we have fae involved in this book, I don't think it's dark academia. We have our main character, and she is going to this architecture college, which she doesn't like because she has no interest in architecture. She wanted to get into the literature college, but that is seen as purely for men only, because women are not capable of the analysis or even being able to write anything, so that's men only. She then gets this opportunity to go to her favourite author's house, who recently passed away, to do an architectural plan to rebuild this house. So she goes, and while they're at this house, she meets this academic rival who is in the literature college. Now this is also kind of done as enemies to lovers. It's not, it's really not, because the enemy part is literally only on our main character's side. It's not actually to do with our other person. So Effie is our main character, I should probably do that, and Preston is our academic rival. Now on Preston's part, he's got nothing against Effie at all. Effie, however, holds a lot of prejudices against him, from his nationality, to the fact that he's in the literature college, to the fact that he doesn't like her favourite author, which is even worse to her because his nationality is like, it's a whole thing. Basically, she's honestly a bit racist towards him, in my opinion, and I didn't like it. I didn't like the interactions at all. I don't mind having an unlikable character at all, like that doesn't bother me, and I think the character growth Effie goes through is good. But so this is not enemies to lovers in any way. You are just being a horrible person to this guy because you are very jealous that he gets to study in the college that you couldn't get into, and now you're holding it against him when he hasn't actually done anything to you. So there's a whole host of things going on. The setting for this book is really good. We're at this house that's very dilapidated on these cliffs. I mean, it's creepy. It's a creepy house. And then we have Effie who can see fae, and the Fae King. It's not dark academia because there's no academic study here. They're trying to work out whether this author that wrote about the fae was a fraud or not, which is fine. but that's not studying anything. They don't become obsessed to the point where they do some morally grey things. So none of this is actually dark academia, in my opinion. Instead, I think it's just a darker, young adult book that explores, I don't want to give loads of things away, but I feel like it's not giving it away. Basically, Effie, because she's the only girl in her college, she then has to deal with a lot of mistreatment from her college advisor, who takes control of the situation, and then she is seen as promiscuous girl who led the professor on, and the professor gets off scot-free. And it explores this theme and then uses the fairy king as a way to explore this theme a little bit further. And I think that's what this book is. It is not a book that is a dark academia book. It's not a book that's looking into the Fae and learning about them, which is what I'd hoped, which is why I kept saying, oh, it's going to be a darker version of Emily Wilde. Like, it's not. Instead, it's looking at a really difficult theme, using the Fae to express this theme. I still really liked it. Lovely setting and everything, so I'm still going to give this a smash, which I feel like I've been forgetting to say that. This was a smash as well, Princess Devil Court. But yeah, so I feel like it's been mismarketed, but I do think it's very good. And I did really enjoy it, and I liked the different things that we were exploring within this book. I liked the growth that Effie went through. I'm gonna leave it there because I feel like I'm just gonna keep repeating myself at this point. I did enjoy it. It's a darker read and it handles some darker topics well, and I liked how we were exploring it. And then the final book, which is honestly competing for my favourite book of the month, is The Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches by Sangu Mandana. And this I loved this. So I was reading it as Kindle book because it was available in Kindle Unlimited. I had it saved on my Kindle because I thought, oh, I might get to it eventually. Didn't really think it was going to be my cup of tea. I'm not a romance girly. I say that, I lie. I do like romance. I'm not a massive contemporary romance reader, but then I'm not a massive contemporary reader anyway, like a contemporary fiction reader. Fantasy romance, I love it. So we're following Mika, and Mika Moon is a witch, and she has been making YouTube videos to hide the fact that she is a real witch by being a witch, because obviously no one really believes anything on YouTube. So if you say you're a witch on YouTube, not many people are going to believe you. They're just going to think, cool, you're doing this for the aesthetic and the fun and the charms and stuff, until one day she gets an email with people that actually believe she's a witch and want her to come to this house to teach 3 young witches how to control their power. And she doesn't believe this because, one, witches are not meant to be together. Apparently being together too much can cause unstable powers and things to like go off and happen, and it's not very good, especially when they're trying to stay hidden in this world, because you know the witch trials were a thing. But she goes there anyway to see, okay, well, let's see if this is true or not, and ends up finding a place where she can be herself, and she ends up having a home for the first time ever, and it is so lovely. And I had so much of this book that I was relating to. It was amazing. I adore this book, and I know I'm going to reread it and annotate it to Helm. It was really good. I felt so connected to this book. And of course you have the romance. We have a grumpy librarian who is our other half of the interest love romance. It's great. I loved it. It is so much fun. I loved everything about this book. Thought it was fantastic. Highly recommend, which I know most of you have actually already read this book and you were actually telling me to read it. I have now done that and you were all completely right. Fantastic. It was so good, and I'm really pleased we're ending on a really high note because that was a smash. I loved it so much. It was absolutely fantastic, and I actually think it's probably my favourite book of the month. I did really like Midnight is the Darkest Hour, but I think this one I'm going to reread sooner and enjoy so much more when I reread it. I really enjoyed this. Would highly recommend. It was everything I needed, and honestly I feel like rereading it now. Like, it was one of those books where I finished and I was like, oh my god, I could reread this straight away. Really pleased that I picked up a physical copy, and I do plan on annotating the ever-living hell out of this because it was perfect. We've come to the end of all the books that I've read. I feel like this month, like, I haven't read as much as I normally have. I don't know if that's true or not. I haven't actually done any of my statistics and stuff, which I don't share in these videos anyway, but it's more for like my own personal interest of how much I've read for the month. So I've got no idea where this sits in an overall view of the year, but I feel like it's not been like amazing. And I think that's just because I've been ill this week, and so I haven't got the things done that I wanted to get done. And also I feel like because I've had the past 2 months and I'm going into December with not having a set TBR, I feel like I haven't done anything. Like, I haven't accomplished anything. I kind of like having a set TBR and then that accomplishment of, oh, I finished it all. I really like that. I'm missing that. Anyway, I'm gonna go and stop rambling. Hopefully I can edit this video into some semblance of something, because I feel like it's been a train wreck, but it's up. I hope you enjoy it. Thank you so much for watching. If you made it this far, then you are a real trooper, so thank you. And put a little witch in the comments below, or a witch's hat or something like that in the comments below. Let me know what was your favourite book that you've read in the month of November. Have you read any of these? Did you like any of these? And if you have enjoyed this video, please do give it that thumbs up, subscribe and comment. Those 3 things really help this channel grow. My social media links and anyone I've mentioned will be linked below, and I will of course catch you in the very next video.